There's been this trend on the internet for a while called fixing people's art, or fixing art. And I can't be the only one who's thought that it was low-key insulting to the artist.
And to take it a step further, instead of just like moving on with your life or leaving the artist some criticisms or talking it out, you decide to go all fucking high and mighty and redraw it and post it everywhere claiming that you fixed it. Like fucking fixed it? Really? I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was talking to the fucking master of art over here, the one who knows everything about what looks good and what doesn't, to every single person on the planet. Everyone fucking bow down before the art master. They know what everybody's gonna like. It's not like art and tastes are completely subjective or anything. And the art master totally had to fix that character and put the artist on blast just because they disagree with some of their art choices.
There are times when I'll doodle something and I'm like, if you guys want to put more time into it to make it look better, if you want to build on top of it, if you want to make it transformative, to digitize it or put it in another medium, feel free to do so. And never did I once hear somebody tell me they were fixing my art. Let's define what art is first of all. The expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. Now we're gonna go into some really weird territory, because movies and cinema can be defined as art as well. There's artistic expression of how the people making the movie think the story should be told. And there have been people in the past saying that, I like the movie, but if they had done this, it would have been better. Or I think it would have told the story better or been more cohesive. So you'll have a sect on YouTube or other platforms where they will rewrite the story, aka fix this person's art. Isn't that the same thing? Technically, yes. Yes, it is. However, here is the difference. Usually what I would find by intelligent people who attempt to give constructive criticism to filmmakers or someone who has made a movie, they don't deconstruct the whole expression of the art. They basically do a rewriting format that makes the storytelling more cohesive or coherent. A movie isn't really something that you can just sit down and look at for 2 minutes and say, wow, I appreciate all that is there. Not like a picture. A picture is something that is static and it is bully an expression of what somebody had inside of them or how they want to interpret something. There really isn't much room for fixing unless the person's proportions of that art are done wrongly. But even so, you have to be so careful because there are some people who will draw characters that are disproportionate, and that is part of the artistic expression. Think about this for 1 second. Have you ever seen an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old draw something? And of course, it's drawn by a kid, you can tell. But you get exactly what that is they're trying to say most of the time. But would you say, I'm gonna fix your art? To a 6-year-old, it would be quite insensitive to the kid who clearly was using this as a method to express their artistic talent. And in doing so, you basically devalue what they've done. Now, what parents would often do, or other people would often do when they see a kid drawing, is they would say, let me bring your art to life. Or they do fan art or draw it in their style. They never say fixing the art. There was nothing wrong with the kid's art to begin with. You can look at a picture of this chameleon, for example, and you know it's a chameleon. You can tell exactly what it is. You can even argue that this child's art is abstract. Even if the chameleon was doing something wonky, like standing on its 2 legs and having human teeth, you would still call that art, because that is the expression of what this person has inside of them, or how they see this chameleon, or how they want to portray the chameleon. Back to cinema and movies, because I know some people are going to bring up the whole Sonic the Hedgehog ordeal. The reason why people were making fun of the Sonic the Hedgehog ordeal is because the Sonic that the person or the filmmaker and his crew were using was not Sonic. If you're going to take an already established character and then make it look drastically different, you cannot expect people to take that character seriously or say, yeah, that's the character. Some of you may remember the movie Godzilla 1998. What was the prime reason why people were upset? Because somebody took an already established character, Godzilla, and made it look drastically different. I think that it was an interesting take on the monster. I understood that that wasn't the Godzilla everyone knew and loved, but people were upset because they took a character that was already established and slapped Godzilla's name on it instead of calling it something different. Even the original studio that was responsible for Godzilla's creation did not like that, but the character later on was integrated into the franchise as the weaker type of Godzilla and renamed Zilla. The movie was ass, but the thing most people had a problem with was the design itself. If the character had been a completely new character, that would have been fine. And you know what? It still was fine that they decided to redesign Godzilla because that was their interpretation of it. It wasn't well received by people, and I already told you the reason why. However, However, it doesn't mean that their interpretation or their artistic expression of the character was wrong. It's just that in a movie setting, if you're expecting an already loyal fan base to a character that looks a certain way, you want them to buy your movie, you cannot expect them to be on board with it if you make the character look nothing like how the character actually is supposed to look. Now, you can argue that Godzilla has looked different throughout the years, has evolved to look kind of similar but with different features. And you can say that, well, this is just another type of Godzilla. But if you look at the other Godzillas, Godzilla has only changed certain things, such as his dorsal plates, his head shape, his fangs, his eye color, but his general silhouette is kind of the same. His roar has always been more or less the same. His powers have been more or less the same. His attitude and personality have been more or less the same. But I think what all those other Godzillas had in common and why there was more room for them to change and express Godzilla differently throughout the years is because that one studio, Toho, owns Godzilla. It is their art. It is their character. So they have the freedom to change it at will. When somebody else decides to do their version of somebody else's art and call it the same thing, that is insulting. And that's exactly how the Japanese studio Toho took it, as an insult. And from what I understand, it's not so much that they redesigned Godzilla. That was the tip of the iceberg. It's that they made that version of Godzilla so weak and drastically different than the spirit of the actual original character. Now let's get into another territory. J. Scott's Mary Jane. Now, from what I understand, this Mary Jane is the Mary Jane in what I believe to be the Amazing Spider-Man comics. But I'm not here to talk about the comics, we're here talking about the art. So this is what the cover art looks like for this issue. For those of you who don't know or can't see what I'm talking about, first of all, this video is probably going to be lost on you, but it's the Amazing Spider-Man issue 601, and Mary Jane is sitting down with what looks like a mug of coffee, and she's sitting in a position with her legs at least, which is a position I've sat in many times. Someone left a comment and said, I made an attempt at fixing this because it was so bad. LOL. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was, so that's all that matters. LOL. Just don't look too closely at it and it's fine. And may as well tag at Fixing Bad Comic Art since their blog is mainly what inspired me to do this. So clown face, yeah. Now it's not that the person didn't like the art that's the problem. It's the audacity that they had to boldly state that they were fixing somebody else's artistic expression of that character mainly because of the way she was sitting. It's not that they proportioned her neck to look differently. It's not that they changed the lighting or shading of their hair. There was no constructive criticism other than the way that the character was sitting, that if you dig into this further, you get to the root of the issue as to why people didn't like it. And it's mainly because she looks too sexy to be sitting like that. Funny, I have sat in that same position. Yes, when I'm relaxing, my arms aren't squeezed together to pout out my breasts. The only time I'll do that is if I'm cold and I will momentarily put my arms together like that to kind of like make myself warm, especially if I'm holding a hot mug. Or if it's not cold, I do that as a means to stretch out my arms. Nobody's in my house looking at me, so that's just something I do and I don't even really think about it, especially in the terms of sexualness. There are times when I do some weird contortions with my body when I'm alone, just for the sake of stretching. And if that was on the cover of a comic book, people would be like, oh my god, look at what you're doing for the male gaze. No, it's just the way I stretch. I'll sit on my office chair and I'll arch my back over my chair and my legs will go one way and then my arms will go another way, and it looks really provocative. I can imagine just briefly thinking about it. If anybody else was in the room, they'd be like, wow. And then I'll do that noise and I'm stretching, you know, that stretch that just elicits that primal growl out of you, like, ah! Nobody's in the room with me. Nobody can hear me. Nobody can see me. However, when you're looking at these comics, you're gonna see people be comfortable and lewd because they're by themselves. Pretty sure Mary Jane's not thinking about that. But let's, for argument's sake, say that the artist did this on purpose to make Mary Jane look sexy, because they're comic books. It's not just for the male gaze. Yes, the male population are the ones that consume this the most, but I also think it's sexy looking at a woman being beautiful. She's a woman, okay. I fail to see what the fixing of the art accomplished other than making her look even more awkward, because from that position, and I actually just tried it on my chair, if she's looking back in the direction in which her head is placed and her legs are placed like that, it is very straining on her body. At least with her left leg up and her foot planted on the chair, it helps to kind of act like a stabilizer so she can turn a little bit more and it's not so much straining her muscles. But all of that aside, to get technical, it is an artistic expression. Listen, I am going to expose a part of my myself that I may see as embarrassing now if I look back at this video, so I'll attempt not to do that, at least after it's published. But as I said before in my previous videos, I love drawing animals. And yes, there are times when I will draw actual animals like horses or dogs, and I will hypersexualize them, especially the males. The ding-dongs gotta be there. They just have to be. And when I was younger, they would be a little bit bigger than they should have been because it's a male. And back then I was obsessed. I still am, but back then even more so, I was obsessed with ding-dongs. So I was like, okay, cool. This is how the whale's ding-dongs look. And okay, the point of the matter is that was my artistic expression. Was it correct? Do whales swim around all day with their things out like that? No, they don't. Please don't judge me in the comments. Please. Just, I'm trying to make a point here. And I think it's not working because you're just gonna concentrate on that portion of the story. But the point of the matter I'm trying to make is, no, I didn't show anyone those, but it's my version and my expression of it. When you see the female animals, especially when they're thinking about the males or they're around the males or even by themselves, they will look hypersexualized. Now, not all of my stuff was that, and more so was about the story later on, but there was a phase where I was like, the dog's ass gotta be extra big, and the male's gotta be looking at it like, oh my god, like, that was just a thing. Other kids do that, right? Okay, anyway, if someone came to me back then, first of all, I wouldn't show anyone that, but if they did, and they said, I'm gonna fix your art, and then make my dog's butt smaller, and then tuck the whale's dingy-dongies back in, I would have been very insulting, and I would have said, keep your eyes off my art then. Draw your own. Because obviously, because it's my art, I drew it on purpose to look like that. So you changing it is basically invalidating my art. Basically saying that my right to express my art the way I want to do it because it doesn't fit your standard or what you like is somehow not valid, which defeats the whole purpose of illustration. You can judge it and say, wow, the dog doesn't have tits that look that big unless she's pregnant. Wow, dogs don't have human asses. Wow, dogs don't do missionary. Like, it doesn't, you know, and I would tell you, I know that, but I clearly drew it on purpose that way. Oh, okay. You don't have to like it, but instead of creating something of your own medium and on your own, you decide to fix somebody else's art because you don't like it. That is not only insulting, but also very uncreative of you. Like, who are you to fix my art? What happened to making your own? How about you make your own and have other people fix your art and see if you're singing the same tune? Because you probably would have told them the same thing. I made it look this way on purpose. There's nothing wrong with making your version of it, but calling it fixing someone else's art is highly entitled and very disgusting. If someone gets upset with you because you insulted them about their expression of their character, you don't have the right to get mad back at them. Because had it been you, you would have been equally or more so upset than the original artist was. People were leaving comments such as, damn bro, there is really nothing cooler than a professional in their late 40s shaming someone in their teens just trying to make your hypersexualized art into a view that doesn't make women uncomfortable. You're definitely not just sexist or hypersexualizing, sexualizing, whatever. I'm a woman, how does that make you uncomfortable? If looking at art of another woman, okay, that's the crux of it. If you're looking at a woman being sexy on a piece of two-dimensional art and that's making you uncomfortable, that's a you problem. And what does someone's age have to do with them being upset about their art? If I took your art and made it look completely different and said I was fixing your art, which basically is saying your art's shit, this is how it's supposed to look. It doesn't look good to me. It's not good enough for me, so I'm fixing it for you.
And why the hell do you have to put so much work into making an artist feel shitty? And I know I'm gonna get some comments that are like, wow, Libby, you make rant videos, okay? You have no room to talk. You talk about art things you don't like, and that means you make artists feel shitty. And yes, I have made rants talking about art topics and about one type of artist I don't like. That one was really petty, I will admit that. But nowhere in any of those videos do I pick on one specific artist, show their character to the world, and tell everybody how shitty I think it is, and how I could do a better job. And then I draw one and I'm like, see, look at my version. It's so much better than this piece of shit.
How would you have taken that? Do not lie, because you would have been just as insulted. And you cannot say all of a sudden that, oh, because this person's a teen, oh no, poor me. It's funny how that happens. When somebody is a teenager and coming out there and poking at other people and insulting other people, all of a sudden they cry, oh, I'm just a teenager. When these are the same people that are saying, don't treat me like a kid, I'm an adult, I'm almost an adult. It's either you want to be treated like an adult or treated like a baby. You're old enough to know what you're doing, and sometimes some people don't understand how what they do affects other people, and that's fine. You have the right to do it, but then when you catch clap back, don't cry, because no one told you to go do that. No one told you to insult insult other artists. And I don't think that he's trying to be cool. I don't think he gives a fuck. You came out here insulting me, and you fixed my art, and I fixed your version of my art fix. How is that bad? I swear to goodness, these people sound like some of the worst entitled people I've seen growing up in Brooklyn, where they will bully you and make fun of you and hurt you, and if you try to stand up for yourself, they all of a sudden get mad because you have no right to stand up for yourself. Fuck that. Everyone jumps on the bandwagon and is like, oh my gosh, it's just a small Tumblr account. Well, you know what? If you understand that you're a small Tumblr account, then what the fuck are you doing going after someone who is larger than you? You ever watch those videos of those little dogs that go after horses and they're just nipping at the horses or barking in the lion's face? And it's not the dog's fault, it's the owner's fault, but you'll have a distressed animal that is much larger than the smaller animal you put in its cage. And then after that big animal can't take that stress anymore and lashes out at the smaller animal, you get upset and put the bigger animal down. Does that make any sense? More so relatable, let's say you're a small guy, right? You're short and you start hitting on somebody that's strapping, pushing around and bullying that person who is literally 2 feet over you. And then when that person finally pushes you back, oh, you know, you're just throwing your strength around because you're tall. Bitch, you knew you were small when you went after that person, when you started putting their name in your mouth. So when you catch hands, you can't get mad because you started it, you threw it first. You have to be really dazed, confused, and mentally ill to not understand how the law of cause and effect works. It doesn't matter how big something is. If you don't want something big coming after you, don't start shit with something that's bigger than you. You would think that's common sense, and I don't know why they still call it common sense, because it's not very common nowadays. Then they want to cry victim and woe is me when they were talking big shit before. Don't talk shit and don't start fires that you can't put out. Don't kick a bear and they get surprised when it turns around and attacks your fucking ass. One other person has the nerve, and you can see these people are all in their freaking feelings. Honestly, I'm about to fix his new version too, if only to piss him off. This just in, local white cis man has never learned what misogyny is. Thinks dunking on teenagers is cool and putting their name in public for his fans to openly harass him is a professional thing to do. I'm sorry, did this person private message him that fix, or did their comment go up on a public site for public platforms and everybody else on them to see it? Because if you are going to argue that putting their name in public is wrong, you should be holding the person accountable that started the shit. They're the ones that put that up there. They're the ones that took his art. They're the ones that started it. And I don't care if he's a teenager. He's not a child. He's a teenager. And I hate this whole logic that, oh, because that person's a teen, you know, you shouldn't say anything to them. Really? So we should just let people under a certain age do whatever the fuck they want. If a teenager goes around assaulting people and then you call them out for it, oh my god, he's just a teen, that's not cool. Bitch, unfortunately, you would think by the time someone is a teenager, they should know basic common sense or basic social etiquette. And a lot of them don't because their parents didn't teach them. So who teaches them? Society. Society lets you know, hey, that's not okay. Hey, that's insulting. If this person had done the same thing to all of your art, you would have been so angry with him. If you only expect teenagers or other people in your age group to come at you when you do something wrong, then target their shit. I don't know why people think that as soon as somebody goes over the age of 18, all of a sudden they aren't human any longer, and they have no right to express how when you've insulted them or hurt them, how it makes them feel. You put your shit out on public, expect to get public clapback. Some people choose not to, but don't be surprised for some people who do, because it is their right to do so. Just like it's your right to come out and be an asshole and insult that person, it's their right also to respond to you insulting them or putting them on blast. And some of these people clearly didn't grow up in Brooklyn, because that's the kind of shit that people in my high school, they hear you talk about them. They'll come and find you and be like, I heard you was talking shit about me. I'm right here now. You can say it to my face. What was that now? So you'll learn real quick, don't talk shit about people unless you want them to come and find you and confront you, because that's their name that you're running in their mouth. That's their reputation. I'm not saying all of the interactions or responses are correct, but if you outright insult someone, of course they're going to be upset about it. And I think this guy actually handled it very well. What we should be doing is doing away with this whole fixing art thing. Maybe it was meant to be in jest at first, but now it's turned into something that is disgusting. There are a lot of people out there that have art as their only way to express themselves. They're going through manic depression. They're going through schizophrenic outbursts and bipolarism and just a matter of other things. Maybe they don't have any mental illnesses, but there are other people who are living in households that are just horrible. And art is their only way of expressing that. And then to have some other nobody come along and publicize how they're fixing this person's art that is freaking low, and you're beneath a human being if you don't see what's wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with building upon someone else's art or even criticizing it, but labeling it as a fix and not a transformative work is damaging.
If you're not familiar with the term fixing art, well, basically it starts from one person online. As per usual, they see an image they don't like, which in some cases it's mostly due to reasons best known to themselves. Then they immediately go, I should fix this drawing that doesn't belong to me and upload it to shame the artist and put the artist in their place. That's a really good idea.
That's stupid! Use your common sense.
By definition, you are fixing something that you believe to be broken, and you're publicizing it so other people think that the original art is broken and yours is actually the better one. I don't see how people can't see that there's something wrong with that. We can't have come that far that now we can't just appreciate other people's art without disparaging them and all the work that they put into it. These derisive attitudes need to stop. It is not uniting anyone. Not saying you should stop criticizing people's art. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's freedom of expression too. Even fixing people's art, quote unquote, is freedom of expression. But just understand that you are making the artistic sphere into a toxic one when you do things like that. And again, what I was saying before, when it comes to movies and novels and stuff like that are storytelling mediums, the criticism, constructive criticism is important because of the type of medium or type of art it is, and you want people to understand your story. It is constructive criticism when people say, hey, your audio screwed up. I couldn't even hear the story. The movie would have been better if it ended like this. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's not anything wrong with that when you're talking about art as well. But putting out a fixed picture of someone else's illustration of their interpretation of their own art or their expression of their own art is no different than somebody remaking a movie like Godzilla vs. Kong and calling it Godzilla vs. Kong and then telling people that, hey, I fixed the movie. So now there's another movie out there that is exactly like this movie except for changes that they think should have been better. That is divisive and contumely, humiliating to the artist, and very insolent of the person who thinks that they are all of a sudden now immune from disrepute and criticisms themselves. Man, I never imagined that people would be this entitled, behave this inhuman. These people act like the villains in stories. There were these characters I used to have for my stories called Chupa Chucks, and they're like little Lego pieces that had faces, and they would try to roll under people so that they could step on them, or that the people could step on them and get hurt and break their legs. And my characters used to hate them, and I used to hate them because every time they went under someone's leg and broke it, they yell at the person, look at what you did, you stepped on me, you're awful person, everyone come and help this person break their legs. I know, I was a kid, it was stupid. But the point of the matter is, these monsters were villains because they hurt people and then blame the people. Anyway, I hope that this is something that we could come together and have a discussion about, because if there is one rule of thumb that people should think about and go by with how to treat others is that old adage, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And if you would like someone doing that to you and publicizing them, fixing your expression of your art, then don't do it to others. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.